kill. You're both already dead. Dead? No, my son. We were only reborn.
The forest of Igbó Dúdú swallowed King Adewale the moment he stepped inside. The air turned thick. The sun vanished behind tangled branches. The ground felt alive, like something breathing under his feet. Each step he took, the dirt clung to him, his legs, his hands, his royal robe. Once upon a time, he would have screamed. Now, he kept walking. The wind whispered his name. Adewale. Adewale. He ignored it. Until the forest went silent. No birds. No insects. No wind. Nothing. Just stillness. Then, a slow clap echoed through the trees. Clap. 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 Adewale froze. From between two ancient Iroko trees, two figures stepped out. One bent with age and pride. The other was tall and thin with eyes like burning coal. His heart tightened. King Olayinka and Baba Esu. But they were not the same. The former king's skin was cracked like dry earth, his eyes glowing dull gold. The chief priest's body was half man, half shadow, claws where his fingers once were, and a whisper of fire on his tongue. "You're difficult to kill," Baba Esu hissed. Adewale tightened his grip on his sword. "You're both already dead." The old king laughed, a dry, broken sound. "Dead? No, my son, we were only reborn." Baba Esu stepped forward, his voice crawling through the air. "You see, when you banished us, we didn't leave the world. We returned to the only power that ever listened to us." The trees trembled. "The beast you fear was never just one spirit." He spread his arms. "It feeds on greed, on fear, on power stolen through wickedness." The old king smiled. "And it gives life back to those who helped it feed." Adewale's blood ran cold. "So Baba Esu, you became part of it." The priest bared his sharp teeth. "And your father was its greatest gift." Suddenly, they began changing. The former king's body stretched unnaturally. His limbs twisted like broken branches. His crown fused into his skull. Baba Esu's shadow exploded outward, forming a second monstrous shape, half smoke, half flesh, with eyes like fireflies trapped in darkness. Two beasts now stood before him. The forest itself bowed to them. "You think you can still win?" King Olayinka's voice now sounded like a storm. "We made you," he roared. "We made this kingdom. And we will make sure your child is ours." Adewale's jaw clenched. "You made me," he said quietly. "But you don't own me." They attacked. The ground split open. Roots grabbed at his legs. Shadows clawed at his chest. Baba Esu flew toward him, striking with burning hands, trying to pull the light out of his eyes. Adewale fell. Mud covered him. Blood dripped from his face. And for a moment, fear returned. Not fear of death. Not fear of the forest. Fear of failing his family. He closed his eyes. And he saw her. Tinuola. Her smile. Her tired eyes. Her hand was over her stomach. And he remembered his own words. Purity is not about soap, but about truth. His fingers dug into the soil. Instead of resisting it, he embraced it. Adewale stood up slowly. Mud from head to toe. Blood and sweat mixed with soil. He didn't wipe it. He didn't shake it off. He raised his hand. And the ground answered. Because the forest was never evil. It was only hungry for justice. You fed on fear, he shouted. On tears. On stolen land and broken people. The trees began to sway. But you forgot one thing, he continued. His eyes burned. This dirt you despise is where all life comes from. He plunged his sword into the ground. A deep vibration shook the forest. The roots that once tried to hold him now lifted him. Baba Eso screamed. King Olayinka roared. You cannot command us. Adewale's voice rose like thunder. No. But I can end you. Baba Eso lunged toward him one final time. But the roots caught him, dragging him, pulling him back into the earth. His shadow tore apart like smoke in a strong wind. He screamed, I was chosen by the gods. And the ground swallowed him. Gone. Vanished. Then, King Olayinka charged. Ungrateful son, he roared. I gave you life. Adewale stepped forward. And you tried to take my soul. He met his father's eyes, not with hate, but with truth. Then he pushed his sword through him. The blade didn't cut flesh. It pierced the darkness. The former king let out a terrible cry as his body cracked like dry clay. And slowly, he turned to dust. The forest wind carried him away. Silence returned. The forest released its grip. The shadows faded. The red eyes in the darkness closed forever. And a calm voice, the first true voice of the forest, whispered. The debt has been paid. Your unborn child has saved you. He has destroyed the beast and your stolen children, the twins have been returned. Go home, your family is waiting for you. Adewale collapsed to his knees, breathing heavily. The ground beneath him softened, like a resting animal. A small light floated up from the soil, pure, warm, gentle. A blessing. The forest was free. The beast was gone. When Adewale returned to the village, the sun had never looked brighter. He wasn't clean. He wasn't shining. He was covered in dirt. And for the first time, he wore it like a crown. He had changed into his clean regal attire, the one his guards had brought to escort him back to the palace. When he reached the palace, Tinuola and his children, the twins, were already waiting for him at the entrance. The children ran to him happily. Adewale hugged his children and said, You must have gone through a lot. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you. Thank you for being strong. His children hugged him back and said, We are back now, father, and you came back to us safely, that's what matters. Adewale patted his children and looked at his wife. It's over, he whispered. Tinuola took his hand and placed it on her protruding belly. No, she smiled softly. This is just the beginning. She hugged Adewale and said, Thank you for fighting for us. And thank you for coming back safely. Their children joined them in their embrace, and they all laughed, happily.